time,
Yes.
this just started coming to me, and I started to share some things that were coming, but it ends up that was the tip of the iceberg. There's so much that happened since, and then I wrote it in April, May.
Right.
It went to the editor, and it's already going to be on the shelf now. But this is I would say this. This is the most explosive book I've ever written.
Wow.
This is most like The Harbinger. In fact, it's another dimension of The Harbinger. The Harbinger is one dimension. This is the other dimension. And yet it's so explosive that I almost was reluctant to do this, but I knew I had to do this. So the paradigm is, I would put it this way, what if there was a master blueprint behind everything that is happening now? If this master blueprint existed from ancient times, from God, from almost 3,000 years ago, could this blueprint contain the rise and fall of leaders that are happening right now, not only revealing what's happening right now, but actually the people that are happening right now, that are on the world stage? Could events that took place almost 3,000 years ago in the Bible, could they actually be determining events that are happening right now in our lives that have affected all of our lives? Could it not only reveal what is going to happen or what has happened, what is happening, but also give the timing of when these things happen? Yes, at some cases, pinpointing the year of the event, some cases pinpointing the month, the week, and in some cases even the dates. Now, when I was here, there was nothing of that before. No. This is all in there.
Wow.
The dates. Could it give the timing of when world leaders are presidents are allotted to be on the national stage, and then they have to go? Could it, of each of the world leaders, could it all be replaying? It's kind of like if the harbinger is gives the signs of judgment, and you had the tree, you had the stone, you had but the paradigm is saying that the whole thing we're living in right now is a harbinger. It's as if the time we're living is the harbinger.
I believe
the news events are part of the harbinger. We are replaying something that happened in the Bible 2,500 years ago, that God, I believe, is using. Now, the word to show us, to warn us. This is a paradigm of judgment, of warning, of a nation heading away from God, and rapidly heading away from God. And what happens? And it goes from what we have seen, where we are right now, and then there's a whole chapter on the future about what does this reveal about the future. One of the things here is that this is basically it's as if God has given us a master blueprint, and it's something that, even though this kind of dovetails with the harbinger, because it's from the same time, from the same thing. Now, what is a paradigm? Paradigm, people use it all the time, and a lot of times they don't know what it means.
Right.
Paradigm means an archetype, like a model, like a symbol. Now, in the Bible, it's filled with paradigms. When Moses is given a paradigm or the pattern to build the tabernacle. David's given the paradigm or the pattern of the temple. Prophets God used paradigms all the time. When Jeremiah smashes that vessel and says this smashing of this jar is representing is a foreshadow of Jerusalem is going to be destroyed. That was a paradigm, a symbol, a model. God uses it all the time. And in fact, Paul in Corinthians, he says that these things in the Old Testament happened, and he's actually talking about the fall of Israel, the apostasy of ancient Israel, that this happened as an example for us. But the word in the Greek is tupos, which one of the translations means is paradigm. This happened as a paradigm. So what happened in the Old Testament, God uses it says for us to see it. But so what happened in ancient Israel, the falling away, is what's happening in America right now. It's what's happening in the world right now. But America is like the center of it. So the harbinger was part of it. You're seeing what happened back then is replaying now. But it's not just objects. It's not just a tree and a stone. And it's every leader that we've had. It's the events of our lives. Our lives have been affected by all these things. So that is what the paradigm is going to open up. That's a nutshell.
This is exciting.
That's powerful. I'm so excited because the harbinger doesn't stop.
No.
Every time you come, there's another piece of the harbinger.
Yeah.
So the paradigm is the blueprint.
It's the
for
other
what's
dimension.
coming now.
It's the other dimension of all this. It's the other dimension. It's saying that it's everywhere. Everything is part of this thing. Everything we've lived is part of this. Yes. So I can set the stage,
Yes.
you know, and now the stage is the big picture. Then we can get to, but it's going to get so exact. In some cases, it's even going to give the parameters of the name of the person.
Is Trump in here?
Yes,
Speaking of names?
Trump is in here. Trump is definitely in here. In fact, I would say that that's one of the things that triggered this, because we were there, you know, we were there in Washington, you know, and it was it was right at that time and right after that it all kind of hit together, because some of these things that we're talking about, when you talk to Christians, I won't say what yet because it's so explosive. You know, the only place I began to share when it was first coming was here. That was when it was beginning. And the thing is that, but when I talk to believers, they say, yeah, I always had a sense that this person was this, you know, but I said, it's not just this person, it's the whole thing. It's part of this whole thing. So yes, Trump is in here, everybody's in here, virtually. And so the big picture, the first picture is the big picture. The big picture is what happened to Israel. Israel is a nation that knew God. God founded it. God blessed it. But in their blessings, they start turning away from God, especially the northern kingdom. Now, the center of the harbinger is the northern kingdom, if you remember. That's where it took place. The northern kingdom is where the paradigm takes place. What happens is they start moving away from God and they start moving to idolatry. Now, today, people will never say America worships idols. We'll never say that. We have American Idol, but they will not say that. But we are replaying the thing. What happened in ancient Israel, they changed their God. That's the first thing. They started confusing God with an idol. They made a golden calf and said, this is the God who took you out of Egypt. So they start falling away from God. They don't even realize it's not God anymore. They want a God they can touch, an idol. And what happens when that happens is they start turning into, instead of worshiping the invisible God, they're worshiping a thing. So that the culture starts becoming materialistic. It starts becoming carnal. And once you can make an idol, what you're saying is, if you can make your God, you're saying you can make your truth. So now you can start changing truth. You can start calling evil good. You can start calling good evil. So that's the next part that's happening in ancient Israel. And so first of all, just stop right now for a second. What has happened in America and the West is we are reliving the big picture. The big picture is that we knew God. The culture was based on God. Now it's been a slow, first it was a slow turning. In that when we were born or in the mid-late 20th century, America starts turning away. And the West starts turning away too. They start turning away, start driving God out, just like Israel did. Starts driving God out, starts redefining things, starts saying we have a new truth, starts becoming more and more carnal, more and more materialistic. And so, but the next part is they have a particular God in this paradigm of Israel. The particular God is called Baal, or we know him as Baal. Now, what was involved with Baal? Well, one of the things about Baal, when they're worshiping Baal is a horrible, disgusting God, but this is the substitute God. So when they turn away from God that they knew, they turn to Baal. That's what happens when a nation turns away from the God of Israel. They turn to Baal in some way. Baal, what was Baal? Well, he was carnal. He promised them prosperity. He promised them sensuality. And in his worship, they took sexuality out of marriage and they brought it into the public culture. They had what they called sacred sex in the temple. They would have a priest and a priestesses having basically relations, and this was it was called the sacred prostitutes. So what the next part of the fall is that the culture, as they turn away from God, they start turning to sexual immorality. Well, look around. Look at what's happening now. The next sign of the fall, immorality. And then you have the next part of the fall. Then this is just the big picture. Then it's going to get specific and name names and all. The next part is that it goes from that. What else was the worship of Baal? It was the offering up of children. It was the sacrificing of children. Why? Because Baal promised them, if you offer up your children, your life will be more blessed. You will have increase. The children are going to weigh you down. So they were inconvenienced. So they actually started offering up their children on the altar. They had this big bronze altar with a bull head on it, and they would place their children on the altar in the hands of the idol, and below it would be the fires, and they would basically put their children. The Bible speaks about them having their children pass through the fires. So the next stage is they start now offering up their children. And so here we have this whole progression happening. And so that's exactly what's happened in America and the West. You know, the first nation to have abortion. You know what the first nation was? The Soviet Union. because the Soviet Union was the first nation to normalize abortion back in, I think, in the 30s. The reason was when you turn away from God, all of a sudden there's no more value to life. Well, when America was embracing the sexual revolution, all immorality, that is the same time that it legalized abortion. So now we've killed 60 million children. This is all Baal. We followed the exact pattern of Baal. So that's where we are. Now that's the big picture. But now what's going to happen with a paradigm? That's the big picture. But what's going to happen with a paradigm is it's going to start getting very, very specific. And so here we are in Israel's fall. There was a special period, I call it, it's really a specific period, where the fall accelerates. Now where you're going to have kings that are actually going to totally champion Baal, and what was in the closet is going to come out of the closet. What was once done in secret is now going to be championed from the palace. And this happens, there's a special, specific period, and it accelerates. All of a sudden, the pagan morality is going to overtake the Judeo-Christian or the biblical morality. That is this. It's going to accelerate. Now we are right now in that period. We were having this fall, but you had the Reagan Revolution where you had kind of a call to come back. Well, once that was over, early 90s, comes this period where we have been accelerating. For the first time, you have leaders from the palace or the White House. You have them championing this, where actually you have Christianity becoming a minority in the land. Well, there was a leader, there was a king in that time who was the pioneer king in this. He championed all these things, and his name was in Hebrew Achav or Ahab. Ahab was now this is the paradigm of Ahab. Ahab comes at this time. He becomes the center of this culture war. He begins championing the worship of Baal not from the shadows, but from the palace. He is kind of a weak-willed man. He comes from actually a culture that knew God, but he turns away from the values of God. He is very emotional. You see him go in the story. He goes to extremes, back and forth. He will be the first king to champion the sacrifice of children. He'll be the first king. He will marry outside of Israel. He'll marry a woman who comes from another set of values, and so all these things will happen, and he will be leading this culture war that will lead to persecution. He will be the first king to start normalizing immorality because he's advancing Baal worship. So you have all these things. Now, could this have manifested in America? Well, if so, who is the Ahab? It's got to happen at the time of a culture war, at the time when this happens. Well, the word culture war came into America to talk about this in the early 90s. Within 2 months of the first mention of culture war, a man rises to the presidency. His name is Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton was the first president in American history, just as Ahab was a pioneer. And it's not about the people, by the way. It's about where we are. We got to pray for the people. But he was the first president to champion abortion. Number one, first one, just like Ahab was. Which is linked to Baal. He was the first president to wipe away every protection against abortion. The first thing he did as president is he wiped it away. Executive orders, first one in the history of America. He was the first leader to champion immorality. Actually, in his reign, just like with Ahab, sexual immorality comes into the public arena. The culture starts getting more and more vulgar. He's like Ahab. He is emotional. He's an emotional man. He goes back and forth. He is a compromise. What was Ahab? He was a compromise man. He knew of God, but he kept going back and forth. Well, that also too. Bill Clinton came from the Bible Belt. He knew God, and he knew of God, and yet he turned against it. Same thing in the same way. And he opened the door, just like Ahab did, for everything that is happening right now. It's not about a person. So that's the first one, is the paradigm of Ahab. And so now what happens with Ahab? He marries. He doesn't act alone. There's another one involved, and her name. And again, it's not about the people, and the people are just. It's not about their motives. We're not judging that, and we have to pray for all people. There's no enemies, but it's the role they played in the nation's fall. The next one is a woman from Phoenicia, and she was a princess. Her name in the original was Isabel, and we know her as Jezebel. What was it about Jezebel? She was the daughter of the high priest of a pagan god, the daughter of the priest of Ashtoreth or Astarte. So she grew up worshiping. She grew up with other values. Now Phoenicia was not like Israel. It was a cosmopolitan place. They had cosmopolitan values. When she was married, she kind of married off. It was a political marriage, and so she was married to Ahab as a political marriage. And she, in this marriage, she never adjusted. She never adopted to her new home. She saw Israel, she saw all the values, the biblical values, as something backwards, something intolerant, deep-seated religious beliefs that had to be changed. So she made it her agenda that she's going to change the nation. She's going to introduce Baal worship. She's going to encourage her husband to introduce that, which means she became the chief advocate of child sacrifice in Israel. She becomes the advocate. So now, is there a parallel? Well, we have a parallel here. We have what happened in the 1990s is for the first time. By the way, Jezebel and Ahab become the first team in Israel's history. First time you have a king and a queen, in a sense, on the throne, both ruling, both doing it. Well, for the first time in American history, we had the same thing. It was called a co-presidency. We had Bill Clinton, and then we had Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton came from a cosmopolitan background. She didn't come from the Bible Belt. She came from Chicago. She had cosmopolitan values. When she moved to marry Bill Clinton in the Bible Belt, she was always seen as someone with other values, that she was never at home with these things. Jezebel worshipped this god, the goddess called Astarte or Ashtoreth. She worshipped female power. She usurped her husband very often, and in a sense, you could say she was an early version of radical feminism. And so, do we have a parallel here? Same thing. And in fact, Jezebel is seen as a hero of feminists. Some feminists will speak about Jezebel as the first feminist. So what she does is she usurps, the Bible says she incited her husband. So she does this. When Bill Clinton wiped away every protection against abortion, it was Hillary Clinton who said, you have to do this. She was the one who made that happen. She also has spoken many times, like as Jezebel said, that she said, the quote of Hillary Clinton was, deep-seated religious beliefs must be changed. Mm-hmm. Her agenda was, we must change it. She saw the Bible, she saw these things as obstacles, and she has become the chief advocate of the offering up of children. This is the modern version of Jezebel. I'm saying of the actions. She became the chief advocate of abortion in the history of America. She was honored recently by Planned Parenthood as the champion of the century, not of the year or the decade, but the greatest champion. Well, this is, and again, it's not that she knows what she's doing, but in the same way, as Jezebel had her own court in the palace, well, Hillary Clinton was the first lady in history to have her own court, her own wing, her own part of the West Wing, and they ruled together. They influenced together. So you have this team going on. Now, what about the exact timing of these things? Could the paradigm actually give us the exact years and timing when all these things were to happen?
This is the collector edition, and what we're doing is, if you order now, you get the book,
yes,
but you get the video,
yes, of
the whole book as well.
More than that.
You're teaching and all this stuff.
Yeah.
It's this. The two sets. It's album 1 and album 2.
It's called the Paradigm Uncensored. Now, this has things that could not even come into the book.
Really?
This has things that are nowhere else on earth because it's either too explosive or we just couldn't put it in.
Really?
That's why it's called the Paradigm Uncensored. It's me sharing. I mean, it's 8 DVDs, and I'm unfolding the mystery, but there are things that you will not hear and cannot hear anywhere else. It's the thing behind everything else.
The
as
book,
well as the full revelation.
Okay, so
the book and 2 sets.
So 2
of the
sets
video,
and the book,
all related to the book, all this new information for a $65 gift, and you get the DVDs. Of course, are in each set. You get the 2 sets, and they're amazing. This is $182 value that if you went down to a bookstore, if there's any left, you know they would cost $182. But we're giving all of it, the whole set. Most people do one video set for $65. Right. This, for $65, you get the hardback book, the Paradigm,
yes,
and the 2 sets with the secrets in it.
Right.
Yes.
Stuff
that's why it's called
too hot for the book.
It's too hot for anything.
You know, but they're there. They're in this now, and this is powerful stuff. This is where we are. And it's biblically where we are.
Yes.
Do you understand that?
Yes.
This is what you need to know. It doesn't make any difference what I think it makes a difference what God thinks. That's why I love Rabbi's teaching from the Old and New Testament of where we live. So let's go on.
Yeah, let me hold off on a second of the timing for a moment. I'll get back to that, I promise you. There's a chapter called The Days of the King, and that's where we'll open that up. But let me say something. There's another chapter called The Goddess. Now, this is kind of heavy, and I had no idea of this when I first came, when this was coming to me. I had no idea. What does the Bible say about Jezebel? It says that she brought priests into the palace, the priests of Asherah. Okay, now Asherah is basically the mother goddess. Now, you had Baal, and then you had the Phoenician goddess called Asherah, or also sometimes known as Astarte or Ashtoreth, which is, the Bible says, it speaks a lot about Baal and Ashtoreth. They were actually husband and wife, and they would offer up their children to both the god and the goddesses. So she brings in these priests of the goddess into the palace, and it says they're there at Jezebel's table. Elijah condemns her for this. Okay, could something like this have could this have happened in America? I mean, does it seem crazy? Could there have been something that happened that it would have to be in the White House, because you have the palace would correspond to the White House? Could this have happened in the Clinton years? Anything linked to the goddess? Now, here's what I discovered. Okay, and here's what's in here. During the Clinton years, the president, Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton, invited ministers or certain people to the White House, or to Camp David first, and then the White House. But there was nobody who was a biblical minister. What there was there among them were New Age ministers, and they invited them to Camp David, and then Hillary Clinton, it says in the paradigm, in a sense, the first lady of Israel here, the first lady will bring priests of the goddess into the palace. Well, she brings them, a few of them, to the White House, and she has sessions with them. And what the sessions were, and this went into the news, but they didn't realize what happened. They said, oh, these are seances in the White House. Well, they denied it, said, no, it's not seances, these are brainstorming. It wasn't brainstorming. Brainstorming is when you talk about ideas. What it was, first of all, the minister, quote, minister was there, is called a New Age guru. Her name was Jean Houston. And she is also called, she wrote a book where she's called a high priestess of the New Age. And so she was there ministering, and what they did, they had these sessions where basically they were channeling. And in the worship of Ashtoreth, Jezebel's, all that, we have evidence from the Bible and beyond that it involved conjuring the dead, it involved speaking to the dead, it involved channeling spirits, talking to familiar spirits. In the book, it goes through all that. That's actually the biblical words. And so the worship, so could that have happened in the White House? It actually did happen in the White House. She led in these sessions, this priestess, and she had the first lady actually channeling a dead person, which was Eleanor Roosevelt, speaking as Eleanor Roosevelt. And they tried to do damage control, but the fact is, as I looked at this, I found that this woman, who was the priestess, she wrote a book at the same time, and the book that she wrote, she writes about the sessions. And what she says is, when you're doing this, you're speaking to the, quote, she calls them netters. And netters means the gods. She said, one of the things says you are dialoguing with the gods and goddesses. So that's what happened at the White House, just as in the paradigm. And because that's what they did, they communed with the gods and goddesses. And also, it says you are also speaking to the departed. You're speaking to the dead, which the Bible says never do. That's in the paradigm. That's what Jezebel did. That's what happened in the White House. Not only that, but the woman was wearing on her necklace, was wearing a necklace of a goddess, of an ancient pagan goddess when she did this. And she wrote the book. The book that she wrote at the same time was all about, was calling people to worship a goddess. That was the book that she wrote at the time that she was doing these sessions with the First Lady in the White House. This was the First Lady's counselor. And so not only that, but when she talks about the goddess Isis. Well, in the myth that she speaks about in the book, she brings it to the land of Phoenicia. Phoenicia was the land of Jezebel. So now this woman who is into worshiping the goddesses is speaking about Jezebel's land, and then she speaks about Astarte, the goddess of Jezebel. She literally writes a book that is speaking about Jezebel's god, and she was the one who was doing this in the White House. So this all took place, and this is kind of the one of the things about the paradigm. It also speaks about secret things that were done in ancient times that are being done in modern times. So even that was fulfilled in that. This is what was happening in our White House, in the palace, the same thing.
Don't go away. We'll be right back after this special message.
God is shaking America.
That monster hurricane, the strongest ever on record in the Atlantic Ocean.
In St. Martin, the government says 95% of the island is destroyed, buildings shredded.
When all these events take place at the same time, people, who's going to cook the food? Who's going to bake the food? There's not enough people to help. There's not enough people to feed all the people. But I want people to be ready. Here's the thing, what I found out. This food is more precious than gold.
It really is.
This food, listen to me, people will die if you don't feed them.
That's right.
So what do? We all get in. Pastors from everywhere are coming. Churches from everywhere are coming. We're all coming together. We're all working together to make a miracle happen.
Yes.
And it's happening. God's people coming together. What is going to do with the new hurricane? What are we going to do with the one after that? And I want to tell you something. When all these events take place at the same time, people, but I want people to be ready. If you could start with one bucket. It's not about buying food, it's about being this is gold. When these people found out there's pizza in these buckets. There is every kind of food you can think of in these buckets. Honey wheat bread, you can make a bread out of this. The bean burger, you can have your own burgers. Cheese pizza, creamy stroganoff, fettuccine alfredo. This is deluxe. For $175, would you buy a 4-month insurance to stay alive if a storm hit?
Yeah.
If a flood hit? Here's the thing. If a flood comes in that house, it ruins your refrigerator. It ruins your stove. It ruins everything there. It's as good a food as you're going to find ever. And it is, the Italian marinara is so good. It's like your Italian grandmother made if you have one. And macaroni and cheese. You've got Spanish rice, and we have cheesy broccoli rice. We have white rice. We have instant potatoes. That's mashed potatoes, by the way. Hearty vegetable chicken soup. Creamy potato soup, thick as it can be. And then morning moose milk. Where can you get a bucket of food that will last up to 30 years? You don't have to refrigerate it. This is a refrigerator and a freezer.
That's it. It's a storage room that you can stay alive with in the next month, in the next 2 months. When you start seeing this as a refrigerator, you will understand that it's not just a bucket.
If you have a flood at your house, what if you have an earthquake?
You said it in the plane. It's going to be a church that can be prepared, a church that can have a plan. The Bible says that without vision, the people will perish. The church had a vision to prepare the moment they heard that rain was coming.
I want every home that's watching today to get at least one bucket of food. This is 4 months of food here. And this is the deluxe. This is the deluxe. This is chocolate pudding even, and the morning moose milk, and the amazing milk. Where else can you get milk that will survive this long? And your breakfast is here is the maple brown sugar oatmeal, and then buttermilk pancakes are in here. And if this regularly retails around $175, but if you give $175, you have 4 months of food for $175, and we're going to send the Staying Alive bucket to where the hurricanes are.
So look, it can be either Houston or we're even planning for Irma right now.
If you order this bucket for $175, this one goes as a bonus to the flood zones. This is 7 years of food right there.
That's right.
And this is all this food that I made with pizza, pancakes. all the great foods, the Italian food. And just add water and eat, And that is 7 years. For how much money is 7 years?
Well, you can order this today for $3,700. Now, that has a value of $10,976. So today you'd be saving yourself $7,276.
And we're adding 2 years of bonus of food.
Yeah,
That's
originally
right.
the time of trouble was 7 years, but this is actually 10,472 servings, which comes out to be 9 years and 8 months worth of food.
That's the 2 year, right?
Yes, sir. This
What
is a
is-
year for two for $1,200, and that is 2,992 servings.
So that's 2 years of food.
Well, it's actually over 33 months of food.
Yeah, they're all bonuses. So
yeah,
they're-
there's so many bonuses. When
They're
this.
more. So 1 year of food there, John.
That's right. This is 1 year for $650. You get 4 buckets with that. That is a total of 1,496 servings that you can have for $650.
Call now 1-888-988-1588. You can also write Jim at P.O. Box 7330, Branson, Missouri 65615. Or you can order this offer and many others online at JimBakerShow.com. Thank you for your prayers and financial support. It's because of you we can continue to broadcast the gospel of Jesus Christ around the world.
Idea.
You're saying this is supernatural spirits going on, people. You're telling it. You're unveiling
Yeah.
what we're fighting.
Yeah.
Why this war is so crazy, people. Why this is insanity that's going on. It's a warfare of evil and good.
Yeah, it's ultimately it's spiritual. I mean, you cannot be championing the killing of children and not have a spiritual element. And again, not that any of these people realize this, but it's there. And in fact, you can look at one point when they're talking about Jezebel, and they speak about there are Hebrew words. And they speak about the worship. They speak about a king who followed Ahab's worship, and they use all these words: conjurer, which is basically channeling, speaking with the dead, all those things. But it actually happened. It didn't have that. It happened. And so now let's go to the next part. And when I was here the last time, I had no idea of this. It just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Now here's another part. The paradigm is so specific that it's going to get eerily into dates. But okay, we talked about what were the days of the king. The days of Bill Clinton. Now presidents can only be there for 4 years or 8 years, but a president can be they usually are on the national stage for a good amount of time. Unlike the kings of Israel, how do you become a king is basically the guy before you dies, and you become a king until you die. But how long was Bill Clinton on the national stage? It begins 1979. He is sworn in as governor of Arkansas. From governor of Arkansas, he's going to go right from that place to the presidency of America. When does it happen? 1979. When does it end? He leaves the national stage as in power, leaves in 2001 in January. It's the end of his so Mondo. I mean, I just wrote this out before so you could see for yourself. But if you subtract 2001, subtract 1979, how many years are the years of Bill Clinton?
22.
22 years. Okay, can you open up your Bible if you have a Bible here? If you open up your Bible to 1 Kings 16 and verse 29, and it's going to introduce this character.
In the 38th year of Asa, king of Judah, Ahab, the son of Omri, began to reign over Israel, and Ahab, the son of Omri, reigned over Israel in Samaria 22 years.
Oh.
22 years.
My.
So the paradigm, the years of Ahab determined the years of Bill Clinton. Ahab was on the national stage of Israel for 22 years. Bill Clinton was on the national stage of America 22 years.
Oh.
It's determined by that. It's not, and you're going to find this with every king, every leader is going to follow the pattern of that, starting with Bill Clinton. Now and it's a crazy thing because and it's telling you, we're talking about all these things. It's telling you that God is in control because nobody could orchestrate this. Because, with Ahab, it's because basically his father died and then he got killed. And so that 22 years. With Bill Clinton, it was election and back, going back and forth, but it ends up with the same exact time period. And so now, all right, here's the next part. This is something I had no idea of when I was first coming to me when I was here. In the time of the Ahab of the template, the Ahab of Jezebel, during that time, a nemesis, an enemy, rises up against Israel. Now, there's a chapter here in the paradigm called the nemesis. He's an arch enemy. He's going to, in the latter years of Ahab, he becomes an increasing threat and danger to the nation. He will issue threats of destruction against the nation. He will come from the east of the nation. He comes from a Semitic land. He is actually Semitic. That doesn't mean just Jewish, but Semitic is other things, is Middle Eastern. He issues threats in a Semitic tongue. At one point, God will actually deliver this archenemy of Israel, will deliver him into the hands of Ahab, but Ahab will let him go, release him, even though the danger that he's going to cause, and because he releases him. God, if you read God actually rebukes Ahab and says there's going to be judgment now. He releases the one that God put in his hands, this nemesis, this enemy, archenemy, and that archenemy is then going to bring disaster on the land in later days. Mm-hmm. Now, question, paradigm now. The paradigm says that in the days of now would be the Clinton years, there will rise an enemy who will be an arch enemy of America. He will threaten it. Did anybody arise at that time? His name is Osama bin Laden.
Oh,
he arises at the time. It's like, as this one arose at the time of the Ahab, this one arises as Clinton. In fact, he comes on the world stage as a terrorist. First act happens within 30 days of Bill Clinton assuming the presidency. They come together. Happens together. And the paradigm says in the latter years of the reign of this Ahab, this one will become an increasing danger. Well, that's exactly what happened. That's when we started first hearing about bin Laden, first time. It was in the latter years, it was in the latter 90s, the latter years of Bill Clinton. The nemesis, according to the paradigm, will come from the east of the nation, so Osama bin Laden. He will come from the Middle East. He will be Semitic. Well, Osama bin Laden, he was Arab. That's Semitic. He will speak Arabic, which is a Semitic tongue, the same as then he will issue threats of destruction against the nation. Well, that's exactly what Osama bin Laden did. He issued threats first before it happened. But could it even be that the paradigm here, this is again in the chapter called the nemesis, could it actually give the parameters of his name, Okay, now let me tell you who was this ancient nemesis. The ancient nemesis was named Ben-Hadad. You'll find it in the Bible. Ben-Hadad. First thing about his name, he has 8 letters in his name. Bin Laden, 8 letters in his name. First part of the nemesis are 3 letters, and then 5 letters. So Bin Laden, 3 letters, 5 letters. But here's the thing: the first part of this ancient nemesis in the paradigm, it begins with it's letter B and the letter N. It's Ben. In Hebrew or Arabic, there's no vowel. It's bin. It's bin. Osama bin Laden will be named Bin. It's bin Laden. In fact, bin and ben are the same exact word in the Middle East. In fact, bin Laden is called Ben Laden in other languages. It's the same thing in Arabic. So according to the paradigm, it has a meaning too. The nemesis, the first part of his name will mean son, and the first part of bin Laden's name means son. Same thing as exactly the same as the ancient nemesis. It's basically the same thing. Now, here's something else. According to the paradigm, the king will have the chance to eliminate him, but will pass on that chance, and it will bring destruction to the nation later on. Could that have happened? Well, the 9/11 panel found out that President Clinton and his administration had the chance to eliminate bin Laden, and they decided to pass on it. They actually it happened 9 times. 9 times they passed on the chance. You can check it out. 9 times they passed on it. In fact, Ahab, at one point, he's given a warning of what's going to happen. And actually, Bill Clinton was given a warning in one particular month that said that there's an attack being planned, that they will hijack planes, and it will involve terrorism. This is in the late 1990s. In that same month, he had the chance to take out bin Laden, and he did not. So according to the paradigm, after his presidency, actually, it's after bin Laden, after this, later on, the nemesis is going to attack the land and bring destruction on the land. It's exactly as in the paradigm. Exactly.
Isn't this amazing?
Yes.
Isn't this amazing work? And I want people to be sure to order before the show's gone.
Yeah. Oh.
And get the book and the two video. This is
Uncensored.
DVDs.
This is the uncensored stuff. And believe me, this is
Paradigm.
the high points. I mean, little points, and stuff he won't say on TV,
Right.
Because he's shy.
But it's on DVD, uncensored, and it.
But you
it's
to
in
get the
book,
whole
so
set.
Yes.
Do we have a baker's dozen on this week? But just give these out when you. If you can't preach like Rabbi, if you can't do it as good as he did, you can take the book and give it, and then the videos come with it too. So you've got a whole set. But the baker's dozen just for the books is what?
It's the baker's dozen. You get 9 books. You get 4 for free. It's $180.
Oh, it's $180 for. That's 13
Baker's
books.
dozen. 13 books.
That's 13 books.
Yes.
A baker's dozen. This is what Lori and I we love your books.
Yes.
I think Lori's favorite book of all time is The Mystery.
That's one you can cuddle up with.
I do. I do. I love that. That's right next.
Yeah.
That's with
Oh,
my
yeah.
Bible
But
on my nightstand.
it
my
teaches
Bible,
you
my
every
book of
day,
mystery.
Lori.
Oh yes, I love it. I love it. You just can't get enough of it.
And so
I would call right now.
1-888-988-158 is toll free.
That's right.
And you can get, that's $180 for Baker's Dozen.
Yes.
We give them to our, especially Rabbi stuff, we give to the more intellectual, like you all are here today. No, I'm serious, they are. We do. We give them to our dentists and our doctors.
Oh, we do.
And
I can't wait
they
to get
love
this
reading
to
your
my-
stuff.
Wow.
That
Oh, yeah.
really is great.
I'm taking
So
this to
put
my
them in the
dentist.
trunk of your car or in your front if you got a pocket or something to put them in. The 3 is the best deal, I think. You just can call or go to the website. You can order on the website.
Go to
If
Jim
you want-
That's
Baker-
easy.
Just go to jimbakershow.com or call right now 1-888-988-1588.
You know, I know enough about the Bible that sometimes I don't understand it all, but I love to have the unveiling, which
That's
is
the mystery.
what Revelation means, actually, unveiling, isn't it?
Yeah, and the Lord is never finished. There's no end to the mysteries of God
there
because there's
isn't.
no end to God.
No.
When you open that up, I was just speaking to someone who was dealing with the media. He from here, and she was saying that it's harder now because the media it's less and less Christian, and there's less and less outlets because things are ending and things. And I said, I think because of the culture, I think that the Lord therefore wants the light to be more radical. I think that's why these things come out. And my prayer is that this reaches the unsaved too.
I'm having, this is my crying period, I guess, but I am so moved by our president asking for prayer. Laura and I have been to the White House, but we've been on the phone with the White House. We're on the president's mailing list, but the president is always asking for prayer, Rabbi.
Yeah.
Yes.
And God has surrounded him with believers.
Yes.
Total believers.
Yes.
I mean, Billy Graham's daughter was there with us.
And
the head of the Assemblies of God.
George
The,
Wood.
and I shouldn't have started naming names, but he's not a respecter of preachers. he loves us all, and he loves prayer.
Yes.
And someday I'm going to reveal maybe some of the things he said about me, and it's shocking.
Yes.
But the number one thing he said he liked about me, and the reason, he watches me still, but he said he knew I had something happened in my life that knocked me down.
Mm-hmm.
He said, but you know what I like about Jim Baker? And he told one of my dear friends, he said, he got back up.
Yeah.
He said, that's why he got back up. And for a man to recognize that,
Yes.
even the Bible says good men fall down
Yes.
and get back up again.
Come on, preacher.
I want to get the video. You need to hear this, and you need to see and hear the video.
There you go.
This is a DVD set, 2 sets, set 1 and set 2.
That's right.
And the hardback book.
Beautiful
Yes.
book.
So many don't even print hardback books anymore.
No, that's right.
Lori and I are library people.
I did. Guess what I have?
You got a signed one.
Guess what, though?
From Rabbi. Did you get it?
Guess what, though?
What?
It's the first one he signed to anybody.
Of any book.
Wow.
True.
What do you got the first one of the Harbinger?
The first Harbinger I ever signed in the world was to Lori.
Yes.
And the first book I ever signed in my life was to Lori.
Right.
And I want you
She always
to
gets right in there.
This man is brilliant. But he said, how do you sign a book? What do you do? He asked Lori that. Isn't that right?
I needed help. Yeah.
But he wasn't a book signer before. He didn't sign people's books.
And so while you were over there, Lori came over and said, could you sign this book? And you got in right there.
I
said,
did.
I said,
It's
I think
all
this is
about
the first
timing.
one I've ever signed. And it was.
Yeah. Wow.
Thank you, Rabbi.
And so
I love
in a few
that.
minutes, we're going to have a book signing here because we want to kick this thing off with you lovely people.
Yes.
You all came here and put up with me today.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. You're an amazing audience. Thank you. But so these three, the two videos, sets,
Yes.
and the
are.
beautiful. I love books.
I do too.
Someday I'll show you my library in back. I'm just praying this will be a bestseller.
Yes.
I prayed today. I'm just going to believe God. You all out there, could you help me? Everybody order one of them. I want this to be the biggest day ever in any book you've ever had.
Wow.
In any one day, I'd like to be the opening day on this thing. I'd like to have literally thousands and thousands and thousands of books
do it.
go today.
Now, of course,
And this book is going to shake
now
America.
listen to this.
You may get controversial.
Jim, if you can't do the Paradigm Bundle, go ahead and at least just get the book. It's just a gift for $20.
Everybody do something to
ministry.
and it help us to stay on the air
Because
too.
you can get into it, you can underline it, you can highlight it, you can read it over and over, but get it inside of you, and you'll have answers. for
It's
people.
your ministry book to pass out. So get 13 of them too. Baker's dozen.
Yes.
So what was that number on Baker's dozen again?
It's
$180.
$180 for 13 books, which is a baker's dozen.
And those are hardback books. Get your Christmas now. That wouldn't hurt. And then we'll have our biggest day in history of Rabbi's books. And we want to encourage this young man. He's just getting started here. Baker's dozen. You actually started as you were called a boy or something, the two young boys or something.
Oh, on the radio?
On the radio show.
Nice.
Somebody asked me to come on the air, the Two Nice Jewish Boys. Yeah, that was
Two Nice Jewish Boys.
Yes. Years
Yeah, I love that name.
That was a great
But-
show.
You remember?
Yeah,
Really?
I've been
Baker's
watching on YouTube.
Really?
Really great.
For $180.
Yes, and then we also have a
What's
3
that?
for 2.
Oh, Sue, I didn't know that.
Yes, we do, Jim.
Say that again, Sue.
We have 3 for 2, and that's for $40 donation to the ministry.
So if you
Oh,
get
that's a great. That's
Yeah.
great.
you get instead of
So you
a
get-
$20 book, you get two $20 books, and that's cheaper than the retail actually. You get two
right.
$20 books, and you get a free one.
Yes,
So what do we call that? Just 3 for 2?
3 for 2.
3 for 2. Come on. I didn't mean to push books today, but I am so
Great,
excited
great
about this
deal.
book. I'll tell you what, Rabbi never disappoints.
Never ceases to amaze.
And,
he never disappoints. That is
know,
the truth.
We got a lot more
Wow.
to teach this week, but
Yeah.
one of the things I really want to talk about, because I hear people, they say, well, the
Shemitah?
the Shemitah or the Harbinger, it hasn't come to pass. Well, the Harbinger came to pass.
We're in it. We're in it. America has not turned around yet.
Yes.
You know, we are in it.
The other
I mean, it's so much. The Shemitah, we had the biggest loss on the market in one of the things. I've forgotten what it was.
Oh, yeah, it was the worst year in Wall Street history since the other Shemitah.
And
before it.
these people that don't know the Bible are mouthing off all the time.
Come on.
I had one of them come to the show and stand up and shout out and be stupid.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to be intimidated.
No.
No.
I'm too old to be intimidated.
Come on.
That's right. That's right.
Okay?
That's it.
We believe that, you know, and this man, we just was naming off. Well, these things didn't happen. Da, 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 da. Everything God's ever spoken to me has come to pass.
It's true. It is so true.
I mean, and everything. You give minutes almost. I mean, your prophecies, and you're not your prophecy, but the word, God's prophecy, they come to, you give us to the minute, people.
Pretty amazing.
And that's why we're in warfare.
Yes.
This is, and what this book is going to reveal to you, the warfare that we are in. And I'm telling you, Christians, don't give in to this stuff.
Come on.
We've let the world con us. The power of the media and television and motion pictures has just influenced and the standard of the Christian America, and they've threatened it, so we're afraid. I mean, I wanted to wear my cross hat on the show today. My wife wouldn't let me.
Oh, I didn't know you wanted your cross hat. You just said you were wearing a hat.
That's all I ever wear is my cross hat. But she said the rabbi's here. You got to dress neat for the rabbi.
Sorry, David.
Cross
is fine.
And you're talking
but
about.
I wear them out in public, and I know I could be shot. I know that. There are crazy people out there. But I'm not going to deny the cross. No. I will not deny the cross. Amen. I won't.
Amen. Amen.
I always say it's the bridge I cross to get to heaven.
That's right.
And I'm not going to blow up the cross.
No.
And so forgive me.
Paul, no. Paul said, I am not ashamed of the gospel. It's the power of God for salvation to everyone who believes.
Amen.
Yeah, absolutely. We have to be bolder. One of the things...
Isn't that... Do you believe we're going to have to stand up more and we're willing to give up our lives?
You've heard me say this, but it's absolutely true, and it's still profound and simple, that when the night comes, as the dark gets darker, the lights have to become brighter, have to become like radical. The last thing, the last two things I was led to put in the book was, one was things to come, future, and the second thing was the Elijah paradigm. And that is, what is the answer? How are you to live as believers in the times of the paradigm? We're even in the paradigm. And that is that there is the key of how to overcome for such a time as this, because that's the whole point. We have to be more radical. We have to. God is looking, I once shared this here, and I actually put that in there. I shared about the times of the David age and the Elijah age. In the times of King David, the faith, biblical faith, was on the throne, so you could be comfortable. But in the times of Elijah, it's the times where you must be radical. We're no longer in the David stage. We're in the stage of Elijah, and we have to become the Elijahs of the day. Yeah. That's the whole point.
Right.
That's the point of it. We have to become that radical, bold, uncompromised, all out, total, on fire for the Lord. This is the days of Elijah.
Yes. Amen. So now you have Jim Bakker putting on his cross hat. Now, look at the monitor.
I had to match the rabbi's black.
Make sure that it's not crooked.
No, the days of Elijah. Tell me a little more.
Yeah.
Because listen, you got a few more minutes, don't you? Just wait for it.
Yes.
I want you to say, because people misunderstand, and we're in that day.
Yeah.
So what's going on?
We sing "These Are the Days of Elijah," and
we all get happy.
I love the song. Everybody gets happy, but they don't. They're not, and we should be happy. But we were not thinking about what that is. What are the days of Elijah? This is the days of Elijah. The paradigm is the days of Elijah. Days of Elijah were not days of easiness. The days of Elijah were the days of Ahab and Jezebel, and a culture that once knew God but now has turned against God, is now encroaching on religious liberty, is now the darkness is encroaching around. So what are the days of Elijah? Is the church has to move from being a comfortable people to be a prophetic people. Elijah is a prophet. That means we must be a prophetic people. In the days of Elijah, Elijah was not comfortable. He was a revolutionary figure. So in days like this, we can't be status quo anymore. The status quo is over. There's not a Christian status quo anymore. It's not like this is Christian. It's not. These are days where it's anti-Christian. Therefore, we must be not status quo. We must become more revolutionary, the way the book of Acts was. We must be more radical, as in the book of Acts. The book of Acts was not a Christian time. It was an anti-Christian time. But look at what God did through those who stood for God.
Yeah.
We have to be like that. I want to be like Paul. I want to be like Elijah. That's what we're supposed to be like. And so these are the times that, the days of Elijah, we must become the Elijahs. And the Elijah here, he was not afraid of Ahab. He went right up to the king. And the king says to Ahab, says to him at one point, he says, "Oh, look, who is this? You are the troubler of Israel." And Elijah says, "I'm not the troubler of Israel." In other words, the culture is trying to redefine Christians. You are the haters. You're the troublemakers now.
Yes.
You're not doing anything.
Yes.
All you're doing is standing for what everybody stood for a little while ago, and that you're not joining in the apostasy. So therefore, you are a conviction to the culture. Therefore,
Yes.
Elijah says, "No, I am not the troubler of Israel. You're the one who's troubling Israel, because you are departing from the God of Israel." And so we have to be very bold and very confident in who we are, and not